I love the Looney Tunes, and I'd fight anybody who disagrees. I love pretty much every character. Bugs, Daffy, Speedy, Porky, Gossamer, Yosemite Sam, Foghorn Leghorn, you get the point. I enjoy a variety of shows featuring these characters too, from Duck Dodgers all the way to Wabbit, and especially the 2011 Looney Tunes show. It's an underrated gem. It's so funny seeing them in a sitcom style context. Now, usually if you bring up the Looney Tunes movies, 9 times out of 10, most people will think of Space Jam. Which, it makes sense. Space Jam was a cultural phenomenon. It was huge. The film perfectly captured Michael Jordan's insane status at the time, and paired it with some of the most beloved cartoon characters. To make an unusual Roger Rabbit meets sports kind of movie. Here's something controversial about Space Jam. It's a great movie, I love Space Jam. But Space Jam isn't actually a good Looney Tunes movie. Hear me out. It is a great 90s time capsule, but it definitely misunderstands the characters. Bugs Bunny was playing a straight man to a basketball star? Daffy Duck as a supportive bench warmer? It feels like this movie was made in a boardroom to sell shoes and toys, which it did very successfully. But this video isn't about Space Jam. It's about its weird younger cousin that many people forgot about. That's right, today we're diving into Looney Tunes Back in Action, released in 2003. The movie was directed by Joe Dante, who gave us movies such as Gremlins, The Burbs, and Small Soldiers, which kicks ass, what a movie. Looney Tunes Back in Action was designed to be the anti-Space Jam. It was a chaotic mess, but it was a deeply passionate love letter to the original Termite Terrace Looney Tunes animated shorts of the 1940s and 50s, which despite this, it completely bombed at the box office. It essentially killed 2D theatrical animation at Warner Bros. For over a decade, the production was an absolute nightmare of studio interference and fragile egos, but looking back, it's arguably the most authentic big screen representation of the Looney Tunes ever made. This is a crazy story about a crazy movie. So before we dive into the insanity, let's run down this movie's plot because geez, it is something. The film starts with a meta premise. Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck are actors working at Warner Bros. Studios. Bugs is the A-list superstar, whilst Daffy is the resentful co-star who is sick of being the punchline, and he's demanding to be equal to Bugs. In the studio meeting with the comedy executive Kate Houghton, played by Jenna Elfman, and the Warner Bros. Executives, Daffy ends up throwing a tantrum, and Kate decides that Daffy's demographic doesn't test well anymore, and just fires him on the spot. I also have to mention, Lethal Weapon Babies? Hell yeah, sign me up for that. This is where we meet DJ Drake, who's played by Brendan Fraser. He's an aspiring stuntman working as a security guard at Warner Bros. Studio. DJ is tasked with physically throwing Daffy out of the studio, resulting in a chase that destroys the studio's water tower, which due to Daffy's actions, DJ is fired. Daffy now has nowhere to go, and he latches onto DJ. This is where the movie starts to get a little bit chaotic. This leads to DJ's house, where we discover that DJ is the son of Damian Drake, who's played by Timothy Dalton. He's an actor famous for playing a James Bond-esque super spy, which the twist is, Damian isn't just an actor, he's an actual super spy who uses his movie star persona as a cover. I guess this is what you need to do when you're one of the most forgettable Bond actors. Damian has been kidnapped by the Acme Corporation, which is led by Mr. Chairman, which is played by Steve Martin. Mr. Chairman wants the Blue Monkey, which is a mystical diamond that has the power to turn humanity into actual monkeys, whom Acme can then enslave to manufacture more cheap Acme products. No wonder Coyote is suing him. Damian tells DJ to travel to Las Vegas and contact his associate Dusty Tales, who is played by Heather Locklear.
Heather be thy name.
And he must find the Blue Monkey before Mr. Chairman does, which Daffy immediately volunteers to join the mission. Meanwhile, Warner Bros. Quickly realise that Bugs Bunny without Daffy isn't nearly as entertaining. The studio orders Kate to retrieve Daffy before the production collapses, and she will be fired. Bugs assists on going with her, believing Daffy needs his longtime rival, and they arrive at DJ's house, and the pair take Damian Drake's gadget spy car and follow DJ and Daffy across the country to Las Vegas. Which I hope there's no bats on the way to Vegas. The first stop is Yosemite Sam's casino in Vegas, where Dusty Tails is performing a burlesque dance for some reason, and hands DJ a Queen of Diamonds playing card. Almost immediately, Yosemite Sam reveals himself as an Acme agent, leading to a massive chase throughout the casino. Explosions and speeding cars just dominate this sequence until Bugs, Daffy, DJ and Kate finally escape altogether. Which Kate initially dislikes Daffy, but the four reluctantly become a team, which they then crash their car in the desert. After a night in the Vegas desert, the gang start following clues on the playing card. The gang then arrive at Area 52, which is stumbled upon accidentally, as DJ just falls through the pole. Instead of aliens alone, this secret base houses dozens of famous movie monsters and science fiction characters. The mysterious caretaker is known as Mother, who is played by Joan Cusack. She explains the history of the Blue Monkey Diamond and its incredible power. However, Marvin the Martian has secretly been working for the Acme Corporation too. He releases every monster inside the facility, which creates one of the film's biggest action scenes as the heroes try and escape from just absolute chaos. The clues then lead us next to Paris. While examining the Queen of Diamonds, DJ discovers it contains an X-ray image that reveals a hidden map concealed beneath the Mona Lisa. But before they can fully decode it, Elmer Fudd appears as another Acme member. This leads to my favourite part of the movie. Bugs, Daffy and Elmer literally run through the famous artworks, changing styles every few seconds depending on the painting that they run into. Eventually Elmer exits a pointless painting, which is composed of tiny coloured dots, which allows Bugs to blow him apart with an electric fan. At the same time, Kate is kidnapped by Mr. Smith, the chairman's assistant, who is played by Bret Hart's favourite wrestler, Bill Goldberg. But DJ then rescues her in a dramatic chase around the Eiffel Tower. Now, like most 2000s movies, their growing friendship begins to turn into a subtle romance, because of course it does. The map leads everyone to the African jungle next. Yep, there isn't much ground that isn't covered in this movie. Along the way they encounter Granny, Sylvester and Tweety, who appear to be harmless tourists exploring the wilderness, and they finally locate the Blue Diamond, inside the ancient temple. Unfortunately, Granny, Sylvester and Tweety reveal themselves to be Acme agents in disguise, allowing the chairman to steal the diamond and capture DJ, Kate and DJ's dad Damian, with only Bugs and Daffy able to escape. Now inside the enormous Acme Corporation headquarters, the chairman prepares his master plan. Damian is tied to a death trap involving a train and explosives, whilst DJ and Kate are restrained nearby. Meanwhile, Marvin takes the Blue Monkey Diamond into space and installs it in a giant satellite, designed to broadcast its transformative energy across Earth. And if activated, every human will become a monkey under Acme's control. This movie's insane. Bugs and Daffy steal the spaceship and pursue Marvin into orbit. Although Daffy spends much time of the movie trying to prove himself, this becomes his biggest opportunity. He dresses up as his classic alter ego, Duck Dodgers. Daffy then joins Bugs in an over-the-top science fiction battle, which is complete with lightsabers and giant bubbles. Now while Bugs fights Marvin, Daffy accidentally becomes the hero. His duck bill blocks the satellite's main energy beam, causing the entire machine to overload and explode. Ba-ba-boom. Instead of transforming humanity, it just hits the chairman alone, turning him into a monkey and ending his evil scheme. Back on Earth, DJ defeats Acme's giant robot guard dog and rescues Damian moments before an explosive train crashes through the building. Father and son finally reunite, with Damian recognising that DJ has become a real hero instead of living in his father's shadow. And just when everything appears finished, the camera then pulls back to reveal that the entire adventure has actually been a movie filmed on the Warner Bros. Set.
See, I pulled a sneaky on you.
The characters step out of set, breaking the fourth wall in classic Looney Tunes fashion. Now naturally the celebration lasts only a few seconds before the iconic Looney Tunes closing ring slams down on Daffy one last time, ending the film with a Looney Tunes style gag. And that's the movie. This movie is absolutely crazy. It never takes a moment to breathe, but it's what makes it memorable to me. It's like a classic Looney Tunes short just stretched into 90 minutes. But to understand why this movie feels so unhinged, you have to understand the development hell that preceded it. Now, following the massive financial success of Space Jam in 1996, Warner Bros. Immediately wanted a sequel. They loved the formula. Take the Looney Tunes, pair them with a massive real-world celebrity, throw in some CGI Roger Rabbit style, and print money. Which, can you imagine if they had that mentality now, like Bugs Bunny and like Ice Spice or something, like oh god. So first up, the idea was Space Jam 2, which was supposed to star Michael Jordan once again. But then it was later changed to Tiger Woods. The idea was to transition from basketball to golf, which then both athletes eventually passed on it anyway. The next idea was Spy Jam, which would have paired the Looney Tunes with Jackie Chan, which sounds awesome to be honest. But Chan ended up leaving the project to make The Tuxedo, which ironically also failed at the box office. Next up on the idea list was Race Jam, which was going to star NASCAR racer Jeff Gordon. The idea faded out before it even started, but we do get Jeff Gordon making a very brief cameo in Looney Tunes Back in Action during the Vegas sequence. Finally, Warner Bros. Developed a script called Looney Tunes Alien Attack. The studio liked the idea of it, but they needed a director. They approached several people before landing on Joe Dante, due to Dante being arguably the biggest animation historian who was working in Hollywood that time. Dante accepted the job, but he had conditions. He hated Space Jam. He famously stated that Bugs Bunny would never play basketball with Michael Jordan. Dante wanted to make a movie that respected the original characterizations laid out by animation legends like Chuck Jones and Tex Avery. The studio agreed, and rebranded the film as Looney Tunes Back in Action, and brought in Larry Doyle, who was a former Simpsons writer, to add the finishing touches to the script. It seems like a match made in heaven, but boy was we wrong. Joe Dante approached Looney Tunes Back in Action not as a corporate cash grab, but as a preservation project. By 2003, the landscape of animation had entirely shifted. Pixar was dominating with 3D animation, and DreamWorks had changed the turn of the animated comedies with movies like Shrek. Traditional hand-drawn 2D animation was being viewed by studio executives as a dead medium, which I've talked about on my Bugs Life video. Dante wanted to prove that hand-drawn animation still had a place in cinema, and more importantly, that the aggressive slapstick humour of the 40s was still going to work in the modern day. If you watch Looney Tunes Back in Action, the sheer amount of jokes is crazy. Dante directed the film to function on two completely different wavelengths. For kids, there is bright, colourful slapstick humour, featuring Daffy Duck getting blown up and Wile E. Coyote shenanigans. But to adults, the movie is completely full of niche pop culture references. For example, the opening sequence on the Warner Bros. Lot is a perfect example. We see Batman and the Batmobile. We also see Shaggy and Scooby-Doo sitting at the table, complaining to actor Matthew Lillard about how his performance is ruining their reputation. It's a level of meta humour that Deadpool gets praised for today, but Dante was doing it back in 2003. But Dante's vision immediately clashed with Warner Bros. Executives. The studio didn't want Hollywood satire, or a tribute to 1940s animation directors. They wanted a safe, easily marketable product that would sell Happy Meals. They didn't understand why Dante was packing the background of Area 52 with obscure 1950s sci-fi monsters, like the mutant from This Island's Earth, the Triffids, Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet, and even the Daleks from Doctor Who. The executives just wanted Looney Tunes to be corporate tools for money. This disconnect between the director and the studio would haunt the production until the very last day of editing. Now, a movie where animated characters interact with live action actors can be pretty difficult, and the fate of that depends on its human cast. You need actors who are willing to look absolutely ridiculous, who can act opposite characters who aren't even there, and who possess the physical comedy to match a cartoon character. Brendan Fraser was the choice for DJ Drake. coming off the massive success of the Mummy franchise and of course George of the Jungle. Fraser was at his absolute peak of his cool tough guy era. He was jacked, women found him charming, but he was totally willing to throw himself across the room for a laugh. Fraser plays DJ as a genuinely nice and slightly clueless guy, which helps balance out all the cartoon chaos that's happening around him. One of the funniest jokes in this movie is when DJ says that he cannot stand actor Brendan Fraser, only for Brendan Fraser to show up near the end, playing Brendan Fraser. Fraser fully commits to the joke and acts like Daffy Duck is just another annoying co-worker. It's humour like that that just makes me laugh and makes me enjoy movies. Jenna Elfman has a completely different role playing Kate Houghton. She's the serious character, surrounded by all the madness, and plays a studio executive who wants to make the Looney Tunes safer and less chaotic. I especially love the scene where she tells Bugs that she's gonna put him with like a hot female character just to basically rip on Roger Rabbit. The character is basically a joke about the real studio executives who kept interfering with director Dante's ideas, and Elfman does a great job making her feel overly professional and corporate. Timothy Dalton is also a highlight as Damian Drake. Of course, he's best known for playing James Bond. He pokes fun at his own image by delivering completely ridiculous lines about Acme with complete seriousness, and the contrast just makes it even funnier. Then there's Steve Martin as Mr. Chairman, who gives one of the strangest performances of his entire career. He wears very high-waisted pants, a goofy wig, he looks like Waldo from Van Halen's Hot for Teacher video. Some people thought it was too over the top. Many loved how he acted, like a real-life cartoon character, instead of trying to play everything straight. Now on the animation side, the voice cast was perfect. Unfortunately, the legendary voice actor Mel Blanc, who voiced pretty much everybody in Looney Tunes, had passed away in 1989. For Looney Tunes Back in Action, Joe Alasky took on the heavy lifting. He voiced Bugs, Daffy, Sylvester, and Beaky Buzzard. Jeff Bennett handled Yosemite Sam, Foghorn Leghorn, while Eric Goldberg voiced Marvin the Martian and Tweety. And interestingly enough, Brendan Fraser did such a good job at doing a Taz impression that he was allowed to do the voice of Taz completely throughout this movie. Poor Jim Cummings, man, that was his job. But even the voice casting wasn't safe from the studio meddling. Warner Bros. Constantly pressured Dante to cast A-list celebrities as the voices of classic characters, which is utterly failing to realise that the characters were the celebrities. The studio wanted recognisable names to put on the poster, but Dante fought tooth and nail to use professional voice actors who could actually replicate Mel Blanc's characters. Dante won that battle, but the war was far from over. Can you imagine now like Bugs Bunny being voiced by, I don't know, Chris Pratt? Oh god, no, I just put that in my head. Chris Pratt, just go away. Do not go anywhere near Bugs Bunny. You already ruined Garfield. Now while the plot might be messy, the technical achievement of Looney Tunes Back in Action cannot be ignored. By 2003, the process of blending 2D hand-drawn animation with live-action footage had evolved significantly since Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Joe Dante brought in Eric Goldberg to serve as the animation director. Goldberg was well known in the industry, having been the lead animator for the genie in Disney's Aladdin. Goldberg understood exactly what Dante wanted: the elastic type physics of the original cartoons to be brought flawlessly into a 3D live action world. To achieve this, the animation team had to work overtime and bend over backwards. When Bugs and Daffy are in live action environments, they are actually lit to match the scene. The animators used digital ink and paint, but they added a subtle 3D lighting and reflection to the 2D characters. When Daffy walks on the tabletop, you see his reflection. When Bugs is standing in the desert sun, he casts a realistic shadow. They refuse to make the characters look like 3D models, a mistake that is done a lot in modern animation hybrids. I'm looking at you, Yogi Bear. In this movie, they stayed faithful and they remained flat, how we're used to seeing them. One of the most impressive scenes from an animation standpoint is the scene in the Louvre. As Bugs, Daffy and Elmer jump from canvas to canvas, the animation style shifts drastically to match the specific art. In Salvador Dali's The Persistence of Memory, they become melting surrealistic blobs. In the Scream painting, Elmer Fudd gets stretched into the terrifying face. They jump into that painting then from Ferris Bueller, The characters are then rendered entirely in pointillism. I have the painters' names, but I just cannot pronounce them, I'm sorry. It's an insane sequence. It's the kind of Chuck Jones style gag, but on the big screen. It required the animators to study and replicate the brushstrokes of the painters whilst maintaining the energy of a Looney Tunes chase. It is pretty much too good for this movie it's in, and it proves exactly why 2D animation is an irreplaceable art form. Now, despite how brilliant scenes like the Louvre chase are, the day-to-day production of the Looney Tunes back in action was a waking nightmare for Joe Dante. In interviews, Dante has repeatedly spoken about how frustrating the production was, saying that he had no creative freedom, and he described it as the longest year and a half of his life. With constant studio interference over the film's jokes and structure, it turned what should have been a dream project into just an exhausting experience. The budget began to climb and climb until it reached 18 million, and Warner Bros. Became increasingly hands-on. According to Dante, studio executives grew tired of the film's jokes, and they brought in around 25 gag writers to rewrite scenes, despite the animation already being tied to the existing dialogue, which would have just drove me insane. As production went on, Dante has said that the studio's involvement became increasingly disruptive, especially when it came to shaping the film's tone and structure. According to Dante, Warner Bros. Regularly pushed back on jokes and sequences that they felt weren't working, and this feedback didn't stop at small changes. It extended into larger structural decisions as well. By the later stages of production, the film was going through significant adjustments in response to studio notes. Dante has said that the studio kinda wanted jokes that were more fast-paced and broader humour than what he originally intended. Now, while the specifics of every change aren't fully documented, what is clear from Dante's own comments is that the final version of the film was definitely shaped by what was going on in the studio rather than an uninterrupted created vision. Which really sucks because it makes you wonder what type of movie Dante had in his mind compared to what we saw on the screen. But despite all the passion and the animation, Looney Tunes Back in Action was pretty much sent to the slaughterhouse when it came to being released in theatres. It was released in November 2003. Finding Nemo had come out a few months prior, and it just revolutionised the public's expectation of what an animated movie should look like. People thought that 2D animation looked old and cheap in comparison. On top of that, Looney Tunes Back in Action was released just weeks before Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King, and almost simultaneously with The Matrix Revolutions and Elf. The competition was brutal. Warner Bros. Marketed it to young children, completely ignoring the fact that the movie is packed with jokes about 1950s sci-fi movies and Hollywood studio politics. Kids went in expecting Space Jam 2, and instead they got a satirical classic Looney Tunes style road trip comedy. The movie cost around 80 million to make and only grossed 68 million worldwide, making it a bomb. Now, the failure of Back in Action had massive consequences. It basically killed any chance of hand-drawn animation surviving at Warner Bros., and the studio shut down its feature animation department shortly after. It also marked a turning point in Joe Dante's career. The miserable experience and the box office failure pushed him away from big-budget studio filmmaking. For a long time, the movie was just a footnote, an expensive mistake that people only remembered when it was played on Cartoon Network or on a random Sunday afternoon. Or when they picked up the copy on the GameCube game. Damn, that game was fun. People who watched it and grew up with it developed an appreciation for cinema history. Back in Action started to undergo a critical reprisal. Today's film critics look at this movie and realise just what a miracle it is. In an era where studio blockbusters are focus grouped to death and stripped of any personality, Back in Action is just full of charm and artistic respect. It's a movie that actively hates the studio system that funded it. It's a movie that prioritises artistic legacy over characters selling toys. When you watch Space Jam now, it feels like a movie from the 90s. The soundtrack, the clothes, Michael Jordan's hype, it feels pretty dated. But when you watch Back in Action, the humour holds up. The physical comedy is timeless. Daffy Duck's energy is perfectly captured, as well as Bugs Bunny being actually cool, not just a mascot. Looney Tunes Back in Action is not a perfect movie. It is messy. The pacing is insane and the plot is literally hanging on for dear life. But the messiness is exactly why it works. The Looney Tunes were never supposed to be polished. They were born in Termite Terrace, which was a rundown building on the Warner Bros. Lot where animators just threw stuff at the wall and see what stuck. They blew each other up and constantly reminded the audience that they were just cartoons. Joe Dante and Eric Goldberg understood that. They fought a multi-million-dollar corporation to preserve that spirit, and even though they lost in the box office battle, they won the war for this movie's legacy. Of course, Coyote vs. Acme is coming out this year, so maybe that will be even more loyal to the Looney Tunes than this movie, making this video outdated in the same year it was released. Should have thought about that one. But that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I really hope you guys check out Looney Tunes Back in Action. It is just a crazy hour and a half of just funny slapstick humour. I love it, it's really funny, and it's one of those movies that I have never forgot from my childhood. It's just stuck out. Maybe I'm just stupid and like silly films, but I think that means something. It stuck out to me, so go check it out, you might be impressed. But that is the end of today's video. Thank you once again for all the support on the Barnyard video. I did not expect that. Thank you so much to everybody who's watched, subscribed and commented, it means so much. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.